better to have a little bit. Okay, so we're live. I always let people know that this will be uploaded to YouTube afterwards. You can also watch when I manage to remember to be my own tech support and it works out, then I have to, oh, sorry. Hi there. We'll need to grab another chair. Can you grab one more from out there? And I think what I'll do is we'll pull this one around. And then maybe Jonathan won't mind being in the corner there. Usually people don't want to be in the broadcast. Will that work okay with you in the corner?
I can sit there.
Okay.
I can sit there. That's okay. I can sit.
All right. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so you can watch this live on Google Plus and I think also on YouTube, and then it's uploaded afterward. It takes an hour or so, and you can watch the parts, or you can use the guided meditation, which we typically do at the end. We try to start around 8 o'clock, and so you can skip to that part if you just want to use the guided meditation, which some people do. So usually we start with a bit of a grounding exercise as a way of arriving. The research tells us that we haven't actually adapted to moving at speeds over 10 miles an hour. And so our bodies might arrive here, but the rest of us hasn't quite caught up. And so it's good to have a little bit of time to make the transition. We give kids this time, but we don't often give ourselves time to transition. So we're going to do a little exercise right now to just give ourselves a chance to fully arrive and to be here. And these are things that you can do on your own when you feel like, oh, my feet aren't quite touching the ground, or I'm rushing around a lot and I don't really feel like I'm here. You can do these kinds of things for yourself. So very first thing is just to begin to notice the contact that your feet are making with the ground. And especially to notice that the ground is not moving. It's really solid and reliable, right? Even though this is a floor, it's supported by ground. And we kind of take for granted that the ground holds us up all the time, wherever we are. And we're just starting to come into contact with that awareness through our feet that the ground is there. It's not moving. It's stable and supportive. And for a moment, you might see if you can feel the ground supporting you all the way up through the rest of your body. See if you can track and find how far up into your body that feeling of the ground through your feet reaches. How much of you can feel supported in this moment by the ground? And you might even assist in this exercise by imagining giving the weight of your legs to the ground, right? Imagine letting the ground take all the weight of your legs, right? So you're not hanging on to your legs, you're actually giving the weight of your legs completely over to the ground. And notice what the felt sense of that is like. And if you can't completely give your legs over to the ground, then just notice giving a little bit. And then see if you can make contact with any sensations that you might notice in your legs right now. There could be tingling or tension or some sense of vibration. Or there might be a feeling of flow or of strength. Or of space. And you're just noticing what that experience is for you, and noticing also how it might shift from moment to moment. It might not stay exactly the same. You might think, oh, it's tingling, and then when you check back again, it seems to have shifted, or it's tingling less, or feels slightly different. Okay, so now just see if you can release your legs from your attention and shift your attention to notice how you make contact with the chair, pressure points or contact points with the chair. And again, noticing how the chair is supported through ground. And you are actually contained by your chair. The chair holds you. And in that sense, even the most uncomfortable chair will offer some measure of support or comfort because it's taking some of the weight for you. And so you're just going to notice in this moment anything that resembles comfort or support that's provided by the chair. And as you notice, seeing if you can take in any of that comfort or support. Again, just noticing, not forcing yourself to take it in, but does it feel like it's okay to absorb or to soak up any of the support or comfort that's available? And if there's resistance there, you just notice that. Just notice that it doesn't feel okay to take in the comfort of the chair. Okay. And then you're going to gently release your attention from noticing the chair and the support of the chair, and let yourself come into the room with your attention and see if you can notice your felt sense of the room, and then also the felt sense of yourself in the room. So you're in the room, but you're also in your body, and you're noticing both of those things. Attention going back and forth between the two, because we can't actually focus on two things at the exact same moment. Okay, and then just let your attention rest. So, there are lots of ways to ground and to focus and to bring ourselves into the present moment. And body is one of the most excellent and efficient ways that we can do that. Because everything that's happening inside is only right now. We can only notice what's happening in this very moment. Okay. And sometimes there are moments where if we try to connect with the body, they don't feel safe, like in this region sometimes all the way down to here. But generally, feet or butt in the chair are pretty safe things to connect with. The contact that we make with the ground through how we're sitting or with our feet can generally be relied upon as a safe way to ground and come into the present moment. So that's a tool that anybody can use anytime. The remembering is the difficult part, right? Because in the moment, we tend to want to go to our old standby to soothe ourselves or ground ourselves, whatever that is, whether it's eating or complaining or crying or whatever our go-to is. That's what we're going to tend to do. So hopefully, that's why they call this practice. That's why they call meditation a practice, or mindfulness a practice, because that is exactly what it is. It's not a thing that we are trying to make sure that we do perfectly. We acknowledge our humanness, and that's the whole reason for the practice, right? We keep working. We know that we're fine exactly as we are, and at the same time, we can always do a little bit better. We can always grow a little bit. We can always improve a little bit. Okay? So, meditation practice, just for review, is not something that we're going to master per se. We might be able to get really good at the habit of bringing ourselves back to ground, or back to body, or back to witnessing, paying attention. But I think it's good right up front to abolish the idea that we're going to get into some kind of a blissed out state where there will be no thought, and then we'll just sit down and achieve that every time we sit down, and that we get this little vacation every time we sit down to meditate, and where there's no interference, no garbage truck sounds, no barking dog, right? Nobody knocking on the door, right? Let's just forget that, right? Because we're humans and this is life, and it's not really an escape. People try to use meditation as an escape, but it's not going to last for very long. That can be effective for a little while, but it's not really a good long-term solution. It won't last. So that's the bad news, and it's also the good news, because it prevents us from getting stuck there. Okay. So other misconceptions about a meditation practice: that it's going to make us more spiritual, whatever that means, whatever in our mind we define as spiritual. That's another idea that we can get attached to, just like this idea of meditating well, right? Doing it right, right? There's really no such thing. And the sooner that we can kind of just resign ourselves to the fact that we're flawed human beings, and that practice is going to be up and down and bumpy, and it's not something that's going to be perfect, or it's not also not going to be an escape from anything, the better and the quicker we will actually make progress. It's kind of paradoxical, right? We get there sooner if we're more gentle with ourselves and don't expect some kind of perfection. We've all got ideas about what meditation is supposed to look like, or what it's supposed to be like, right? We see images on TV, people sitting cross-legged, and right, incense and Om, and all of those things are part of some Eastern traditions, right? We can sit cross-legged if we really like that pain part. We can hang out on the floor for a long time. But then there's the danger of getting over focused on control and trying to deal with the pain. So that can just become another distraction from what we actually want to practice. And so what is it that we actually want to practice? Anybody have any idea what we actually want to practice? What is meditation practice?
Silencing the mind.
Sure. What's that?
Silencing the mind.
Yes, that's what we think, right? We think it's about silencing the mind. So that's another myth. That's another myth. And why do we like that one? What would happen if we... What's that?
Because our minds are very noisy.
Yeah, right? Get me out of here. It's noisy in there. I don't want to be here anymore, right? I need a vacation. So that is one of the reasons that people try to engage in meditation practice. Can anybody else hazard a guess at what we're practicing?
Noticing.
Noticing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And noticing in a particular way, right? Did you say?
I was just going to say, sort of noticing the thoughts, but not being a slave to them, just like letting them flow
Ah.
through and coming back to the present moment, but not following every thought and chasing after it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm a therapist, and if there were ways to stop thought, some really smart therapist would have figured that out, right? And just dole out the magic formula and get really rich. There was I think in the 70s, some person came up with thought stopping therapy. It's been discredited. We don't know where thoughts come from. We don't know how to stop them. It seems to be a feature of being human, right? So it's just part of the package. It comes along with being human. But like Beth was just saying, if we can't get rid of thought, what if we can shift the relationship with thought so that we don't take it quite so seriously? What if it was tough to totally buy into any thought that popped into your head? Can you imagine what that might be like? Right? So there's a stream of thoughts kind of coming through like the ticker on the stock exchange, or that, the sports, right? ESPN, the ticker that's going by. What if your thoughts were just like that ticker that's going by? Right? You can't really get attached to any one of them because it's off the screen pretty quick, right? Or what if it was like the stream going by? You're standing at the edge of a river or a stream, right? Or even standing there at the ocean and the waves go out and come in. And what happens if you try to get attached to one point, one ripple of the river going by, or one wave, right? It comes in and it's gone. And what if thought was like that? What if your relationship with thought, your thoughts, was just like that? Whichever analogy appeals to you. Can you imagine what that feeling would be if that was your relationship with thought? If you knew the same way you know that ocean wave will come in and go out and another will replace it. If you felt the same way about your thoughts that come and go, what might that be like? What might the felt experience of that be like?
It wouldn't feel so threatening, I don't think.
Yeah. If they just come and go. Right? They just come and go. They keep coming and they keep going, right? So for the happy thoughts, the thoughts, the juicy ones we like, the fact they keep coming, that's a relief, right? We'll have more of those. And the fact that the ones we don't like keep going, that's kind of a relief. Right? This is what a meditation practice does. It helps us shift our relationship with thought such that thoughts no longer dominate our experience as big T truth. Right? And if we've never considered this idea before, it can seem like something kind of radical or a pretty big deal. We might have been going through life thinking that everything that we think is true. And so then I always like to offer this example because most people can relate to it. You're at work, or it could be with your family, and you hear somebody say something and it sets you off. Right? And you have the image of, right? Or screaming at the top of your lungs. Right? And you don't do it. Why? You know not to believe that thought, right? You know not to believe the thought that says, punch them, or, right? Right? Tell the boss off. We know which ones not to buy into, not to believe. So there's our opening. If this is a big leap, then we just make the little leap, which is some of my thoughts might not be a good idea to believe. Right? At least not 100%. Right? And with that in mind, we can take the next little step that says, oh, if I can stand back a little bit and watch that stream, right? If I'm not so attached to every single thought that pops into my head, and I can put some distance there, I might be able to more easily tell which thoughts to pay attention to, which ones actually warrant getting excited about, warrant my attention. Right? And it turns out, and there's actual research, I have no idea who would have done this. It turns out that the vast majority of our thoughts are repetitive and useless. About 90% is what they've measured. It's just repeat stuff we've already thought about and keep thinking about. Right? So what if we only had to attend to about 10% of all that noise, right? And the rest of it can kind of recede into the background. Okay, are you following me? What that might be like if about 90% of the noise suddenly got quieter just because your mind suddenly thinks, I can just tune that out. I don't actually have to bite the hook and go for the ride. Right? But we have a well-established habit usually where people are generally built one of two ways or a combination. We generally believe everything we think, or we believe everything we feel, right? It's driven by emotional intensity, or maybe it's a combination of the two. Okay. We feel it or we think it, we buy in and we go for the ride, right? We believe, oh, what I'm feeling, that must be true. And how many times have we thought something really for sure? We knew what somebody was thinking or what their intention was, and then we find out, oops, right? I was off. Right? So we can damage relationships that way. We can make lots of mistakes that way. And actually this practice of watching the stream of experience move through thought and emotion and whatever else we're experiencing, watching it move through increases what's known by some as prajna. So it's like a wisdom, it's an inner wisdom or knowing that arises from being able to stand back from the stream and notice what's happening, because something inside, some wise part of us knows automatically which things are true, which things we need to pay attention to, and which things we need to let pass through, right? But we are very well conditioned, right? Sometimes we even like to be upset. We even like to be miserable, as paradoxical as that is, right? And if we investigate that, that's another thing we might notice when we're sitting in our practice and we're noticing the stream that's going through. We might notice, oh, anger, and oh, something is attracted to that and doesn't actually want to let go of the anger. The anger just wants to move through, and we might say, oh, but I'm not done with that, right? Especially self-righteous anger. We like that one. I'm right. I know I'm right, right? Even though anger, really not great for us. You know, it's okay if it just peaks and then we let go and it moves through. But when we hang on to it, it does damage, right? It damages us interpersonally. It damages actually our biology, right? Stress, right? When we hang on to things, can't let things go. When we cultivate anger by hanging on to thoughts, believing in thoughts that we have about the intensity of the anger, right? We're usually doing ourselves a disservice by hanging on to pretty much anything. If we hang on to the good, we don't actually get to experience it fully. And if we hang on to the bad, we're prolonging our misery and generally the misery of those around us. So one of the most self-compassionate and other compassionate things that we can do is this inner work of practicing noticing, right? And so where does it lead? What's the practical application? So besides having all that noise, most of it recede into the background and, relief, other things can occur. Like we might notice that there's a conflict between what I'm thinking and what my body is actually telling me, or my gut is telling me the truth about something. And we can move from the true place instead of what our mind tells us we should be feeling about something, what we should be doing about something, where we ought to be in life, or how we ought to be in life. We can move from the place where the truth registers. We can actually notice the truth. We talk all the time about ignoring our gut feeling of things, right? Ignore our intuition. That's generally this felt sense of something, that we do it at our peril, right? We usually regret ignoring this voice. There's truth in there, right? But we talk ourselves out of it, right? More thoughts. Yeah. So we can access our inner wisdom. We can experience some relief from the noise. And we can also have this improved impact on life, on others, right? We can be less harsh through developing and cultivating this noticing. We can notice harshness on self, and we can notice how that harshness spills out onto other people. And we might even notice how, if we practice, we're actually cultivating peace, right? The world could use a little more peace. It's pretty obvious, right, to everybody, right? Even people who aren't very, tuned in. It's pretty obvious to everybody the world could use a little more peace. So how motivated would you be to practice if you knew that your practice was contributing to world peace? You're giving peace to the world. And knowing that in this shared field, everyone here, right? You're not alone. In addition to that, you are not alone. Everyone here is interested in cultivating that peace. So those are the reasons we practice. And I'll give, when we will break and have our guided meditation, and I'll give a little bit of instruction, not just a little bit, before we start. And it's a good reminder for folks who are already coming here and familiar with this meditation. But I think it's good and helpful to hear it repeated, because all the other bad habits that we have and the other voices in our heads that we listen to, they've got a lot of time, right? They've had a lot of airtime. And so I think it's helpful to hear the how to meditate and why we meditate repeated, so we can touch into that and reground ourselves, come back again and again to what I'm getting out of this and why it's so important, not just for me, but for everyone I love and possibly for the whole world. Okay. So we'll take 5. And when you come back, make sure phones are silenced. Okay. Another chair. I'll give you my chair.
Oh, no, I'll tough it out.
Are you sure?
Oh, yeah.
I'll let
No, I
you
was
have
laughing
this
because I was quick to be like, get out of your pillow, and then I'm like, nice move, smart ass, you know?
Yeah. Right. Don't believe every thought you have.
That's
All right. Stretch your legs and get a drink if you need to. I'm having trouble with the timer. It's being very
I notice it's
cantankerous. I didn't
autonomous.
start it. I know. I didn't start it. Yeah.
So I finished my Reiki 1 training today.
You did. How you feel?
Pretty good.
Yeah. Cool.
Now I gotta find people to practice on.
What's that?
I have to find people to practice on.
Oh yeah. 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 I have a friend who's teaching me polarity work, and I keep thinking I need to put out a notice on Facebook or something to see if people are willing to be volunteers for me to practice on.
Don't always practice on me, but whatever comes along.
Okay, good to know.
It's the beginning of practice, right?
What's that?
You said practice.
Polarity work.
Yeah,
It's hands-on body work.
You don't want random people.
I would think it'd be easy to get volunteers.
I bet it would be if I put it out there.
You were talking about the thought of like what meditation looks like.
Uh-huh.
That was that email that I had sent with like, is there a meditation practice like for
Yeah.
And it was specifically, I was walking home from the last time the bus went by, and that was an ad for the Campbell's Soup Kid, the wisest kid in the world. You know what I mean? Like the woman, she's like, I can't figure out what for lunch, and he's like, oh, I've been thinking about this for a million years. He's got the beard wrapped around his waist, 5 or 6 times, and that's why I said that. Like,
I know, because it just pops up.
Yeah. So did any of that work?
Okay.
Would I?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why I put the little discriminator. Like there literally wasn't like an issue that I was anything. It was like one of these things I thought like, I've been practicing meditation. Is there like forms of meditation?
Yeah. There's lots of ways to meditate.
Right.
I'm particularly interested in ways to meditate that aren't about controlling anything. So we're riding a sort of a fine line because there's a little bit of control. There's a little bit of control associated with having ourselves pay attention. And there's this particular state that we're actually trying to help ourselves land in that's ideal. And it's actually the goal of the therapy that I do with folks too, for their nervous system to be able to hang out in a state of what's called relaxed alertness or relaxed readiness. So if we're really tense, we're not actually prepared for threat because we're constricted. Our body is not ready to respond. But if we're alert and relaxed, then we can move whatever direction we need to go. We can think, right? We can kind of make a decision, a wise choice about what needs to happen in this moment. We can respond quickly if it needs to be from a really reflexive place, like, oh, the kid starts to run into the street. You just run out there and pull him back, right? But if we're already constricted, we actually have to unconstrict to act. And the truth of the matter is that we are so busy and so on all the time, and we're so socialized to be doing all the time that our bodies are familiar with two states. We're familiar with on, so the gas stuck on, or as soon as we take the foot off the gas, right, we're asleep. We have two states, 100% or asleep. And that is what some people experience when they first start to meditate, is when they start to relax, the sleep monster comes in, right? Because they only know two states. The nervous system is used to, that when we stop moving, when the mind stops moving or the body stops moving or both, that's the cue to go to sleep, right? So you're building another habit. You're building another state of awareness for your body to rest in. Relaxed alertness. And what you can practice if you notice sleep coming in and you're trying to just notice, which is that's our only job during this meditation, this whole guided meditation. Your only job is to notice. And if you feel sleepiness come in, you can experiment with what happens if I shift my posture ever so slightly. So if I shift forward just a tiny bit, what happens to my attention? And I could notice what happens when I lean back just a tiny bit. What happens to the sleepiness or that feeling of kind of wanting to check out or be floaty or disconnected from my experience in this moment. And so we can play around with that and notice, where's the posture? Where's the place in the middle that has me alert and present, awake, but not like, right, leaning too far forward, hanging on tightly, right? So you find where that place in your posture is for you. You can experiment with that. You can start out just being relaxed and then notice what happens. Notice if it feels like there's too much tension there. What happens if I let my shoulders come back a tiny bit more or let my head come back just the slightest bit more? What happens in my experience of this meditation? So, just a reminder, the only thing that you need to do is notice. I'm going to guide first a body scan and then a little bit of focus on the breath. And then we'll open up that focus on the breath to letting your attention notice everything that's going on, thought, sensation, noises, whatever might be happening, and seeing if you can expand from just noticing the breath to then what happens if I let everything be here to notice. And then we'll introduce right at the end a question that helps induce passive relaxation, alert relaxation for most people. It works pretty well. What happens if I allow everything to be as it is right now? And so there's not an answer to that question. You're just introducing the question so that you can check in your experience. What happens if I contemplate that? What would the experience be of allowing everything to be as it is in this moment? Could I imagine what that feeling might be like? Okay. And if at any point you feel like it's too difficult to follow along, or you have resistance to some part that's being led, feel free to just hang out with your feet or the candle or some, internal sensation. If you want to just hang out with your breath and just notice that, it's fine to do that too. And if your mind wanders, because that's what human minds do, then as soon as you notice your mind has wandered, you just go, oh yeah, I'm just noticing. And then you just come back. Gently come back, not come back stupid, right? Gently, oh yeah, and come back. That's what I was doing. I'm just noticing. And you're just letting yourself have this time you've set aside. We've all agreed and set aside this time. And for the next 24 minutes, you're going to be conducting this experiment, which is basically what happens if I just notice the stream of experience. So that means you can't get it wrong. No matter what's moving through, it's just your experience. And all you have to do is notice it. And to the best of your ability, you're going to notice non-judgmentally. And if you can, see if there's curiosity, right? And if you can muster it, even a little bit of kindness or compassion, friendliness with your humanness. Okay. Bless you. Okay. So one last thing, and that's to adjust the lights however most of us would like them. And how's that one up there? On or off? Everybody's okay with that one? What's that?
I said all set fine.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and eyes can be open or closed. Generally, wherever your hands can rest, and let your shoulders not be pitched forward. So sometimes, like this, can pull our shoulders forward. You could just rest one hand on top of the other in your lap, or hands down on thighs or up. Either way, whatever feels comfortable to you. And generally, feet flat on the floor is good, reasonably upright. And if you want eyes open, you could focus on a spot somewhere out in front of you on the floor or on the wall. Whatever feels safest and most comfortable to you. And if anything arises that feels too uncomfortable, just open your eyes and hang out. Take a couple of deeper breaths. You're even welcome to and encouraged if you're too uncomfortable. That means like above a 5 on a 0 to 10 scale, to exit the room. If you want to, Jonathan, if you want to aim this way just a tiny bit, aim your chair so just in case anybody would need to exit. Thank you. Above all, take care of yourself. We are not exercising self-violence here. That's no, not in this class. You can go to some Zen training if you want to do that. Okay, so just starting to get a sense of your chair, and I'll start the timer. Okay. And feeling how you make contact with the chair. Noticing your feet touching the ground. Let your attention start to gently turn toward the top of your head. So just gently letting attention rise to notice the top of your head. And all you're doing is noticing whatever sensations or anything at all that you find there at the top of your head. There could be tension. coolness or warmth or tingling. Nothing at all, or some other kind of discomfort. And all you're doing is noticing, and see if you can be friendly with whatever you find there. And then as you're ready, let your attention gently drift down to begin noticing your face. Any sensations or anything at all you notice in your face. You might pay some special attention to those areas that we carry tension: the eyes, the mouth. And you could experiment with letting your eyes sink back into their sockets and letting your tongue be really limp and loose in the bottom of your mouth, and noticing what that does to the surrounding areas, the muscles in your eyes, jaw, throat. And then leaving any remaining sensations you found there in your face, right there. Let your attention shift to begin noticing the sides of your head. Noticing your ears and your temples, your jaw. And you could experiment with imagining letting your ears drop slightly as a way of releasing any tension there that might be on the sides of the head or in the temples. And then just notice what that's like. And then as you're ready, let your attention move all the way around to the back of your head, noticing back of the head and back of the neck and whatever you might find there. And if you find any tension or discomfort, since that area is kind of hard to voluntarily relax, you might just make a request for some relaxation in those areas, back of the head, back of the neck. And then see if you can open or wait and see what happens after you make that request. Requesting some softening, some relaxation, and then just seeing what happens. And then just let yourself notice whatever remaining sensations are there in the back of the head and neck. And let your attention drift down to begin noticing your shoulders, scanning from the back of your neck across the tops of your shoulders and pausing at the shoulder joints. And then scanning your upper arms down to elbows, Pausing at the elbow joints. Scanning forearms. And then pausing at wrists. And scanning the lengths of both hands from palm to fingertips. And then letting yourself sense for a moment left arm from neck across shoulder and down to fingertips. And then notice right arm from neck across the shoulder and down to fingertips. And then see if you can feel both arms simultaneously. And just notice whatever sensations you find there. Perhaps warmth or coolness, or differences between left and right, depending on what arm uses the mouse. Tingling or tension or restlessness, being as friendly as you can with whatever you find there. Because remember, your only job is to notice. Not getting too caught up with a label of whatever you find. It's not a critique. You're just noticing what you find in any given moment. And then gently prepare yourself to shift your attention to noticing the core of your body, beginning to scan from your throat all the way down to where you're seated in the chair. First noticing the throat, and then your chest or heart area, and then the diaphragm or that space between chest and belly. Noticing the belly, and then your lower abdomen, and feeling your core all the way into your hips and how you're supporting yourself in the chair. And then scanning down the back, noticing upper back and the middle of your back. And noticing your lower back. And all the way down to where your bottom makes contact with the chair. And you can experiment with imagining a loosening in the throat area, a loosening in the armor and the entire front of the body, an openness in the heart or chest area, softening of the belly. And if you find any discomfort anywhere in the core of your body, you can just notice that, or you could imagine for a moment breathing in and out of that spot as though it were another set of lungs. Breathing in through that spot and then out. And just noticing what happens as you spend a moment giving attention to any area of discomfort, compassionate attention. And then finally, preparing to shift your attention gently again to scan your legs, starting where you're seated in the chair, and you can feel the contact of the backs of your legs with the chair. Letting your attention move across the undersides of your legs and then the top sides. And pausing at the knees. And then letting gravity pull your attention down further, scanning shins and calves. Attention sinking down toward the ground into ankles and heels. And then across the length of your feet, all the way to the tips of your toes. And you could notice left leg from top to bottom for a moment. And then right leg from top to bottom. And then see if you can notice both legs together. And just notice what seems to be there. Tingling, restlessness, some other feeling of energy. And you might even make a note of whether the thing that you feel in your legs seems positive or neutral or unpleasant, but not getting too tied up in the label, just noticing. And then gently leaving whatever sensations remain in your legs right there where you found them, and letting your attention float up, rise up to meet the place where you notice breathing seems to be happening. Not where it seemed to be happening last time. Where does breathing seem to be happening right now? And can you let your attention rest there for a moment? Not trying to change the breath in any way, just noticing that there's breathing in and breathing out, happening without your assistance. Your breath is always there, supporting you, just like the ground. You don't have to think about it. And you might pause for a moment to notice there's a space at the end of your out breath. There's a little space where the breathing stops before you begin to draw the next breath. And what happens if you just hang out there for a moment? Rest there. And see if you can identify the place where breathing seems to be happening or seems to be happening most prominently for you. What part of your body is that? Or what part of breath is that? The rhythm or the sound of it? or the sensation of it at the nose or throat. A rising and falling of chest or belly. And then just let your attention rest in that spot for a moment. And as you rest in that place, see if you can open the space of your awareness to allow noticing other things that seem to be happening in the present moment. So wherever attention would like to go, it goes freely and you just notice. It might go to sounds in the room or outside the room, or the feeling of the chair or the ground, or the clothes on your body, movement of air in the room, or some sensation that you might find inside, or thoughts or emotions. Seeing if you can let your attention just rest anywhere it wants to in the present moment, and then move to the next thing as it would like. So not trying to control attention, just noticing where it seems to go. Like you might watch the dog run after you let it off the leash. And if you get distracted, remember it's not a problem. You just come back. Oh, that's right. I was just noticing. That's all I'm doing. And even if I feel sleepy or bored or distracted, I can even notice the quality of those experiences. What does that feel like to be restless or bored or sleepy? Where are the sensations? And if you like to support this exploration of your awareness, you can introduce this question into your space. What happens if I allow everything to be as it is in this moment? What's that like if I give up even the meditator? Let go of the one who's trying to get it right or to make something happen. Let go of my ideas about meditation. Just allow myself to notice my experience and to come back each time I become distracted or lost. Starting fresh. Every moment I can start fresh. What's the experience of that? What's the experience of being without effort, without control, not trying to make anything happen, just resting in this noticing? What's it like to just be conducting an experiment where all you have to do is just notice? Noticing where everything is allowed, a noticing where nothing is excluded, no part of experience is kept out. Embracing all of it. And just taking one more minute as we reach the end of this meditation to savor perhaps silence or spaciousness, or whatever you discovered as you allowed this resting and noticing. And perhaps setting an intention to remember that you can ask this question anywhere, anytime. What happens if I allow everything to be as it is in this moment? You can try it out anytime. And as you feel ready, start to offer your arms and legs some energy, fingers and toes, some gentle movement, and giving yourself as much time as you need to transition, not forcing or rushing. The app that I use for our timer says that you all just meditated with 1,126 other people in the world. I think sometimes it's helpful to remember that even when we sit down to practice and we think we're doing it alone, somewhere in the world others are doing the exact same thing. Right? And we can tap into and connect ourselves to that energy, to that field, just by thinking about and remembering that we're not alone. Others are in this with us.
I'm surprised it's not more than that.
Well, that's only the people using this
that.
Insight. It's called Insight Timer.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I'm guessing that it's lots more. Yeah. So it was so nice to be with you all this evening. Thanks for being in the crowded little space. Namaste. As always, if you have questions about practice or anything that we did here today, you can always contact me, email me, call me. Okay.
Is there evidence study or something that talks about thoughts, like, that they aren't all significant? Like, I don't know, I was trying to explain it to somebody else and I just thought that was crazy. Like, of course your thoughts are true. You wouldn't have it if it wasn't true.
Right,
And
that's,
you shouldn't have bad thoughts. 'Cause that happens too. Like, that they just come from nowhere. Like, is there some sort of something that I could say
I'm trying
here?
to think
Here's some
who's,
proof.
well, the 90% statistic is cited in a few different places. You might be able to just
Google
Google
it.
that one and find
Okay.
it. Do you remember where that's? It might be in the Buddha's brain.
Okay.
It's well known. It's cited in multiple
I'll Google some
places.
stuff.
I didn't hear
Yeah.
what the question.
The research about the 90% of thought being repetitive,
Oh.
useless. Yeah.
I've read it often enough, but I don't remember what the research.
Just time fillers.